Have you ever heard of a town that doesn't exist? It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, doesn't it? But in the remote forests of Eastern Europe, there's a village that vanished without a trace, and no one can explain why. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into the chilling mystery of Scribus, a village so enigmatic that it might not even have existed in the first place. Stick with me, because the story behind this place will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about reality. You sent in a lush, green valley, nestled near a winding river. There was a small but thriving village named Scribus. Locals lived simple lives, working as farmers and artisans. For decades, the town existed peacefully, relatively isolated from the larger world, where people went about their business, and the rhythms of life stayed consistent. But the stories we're about to explore don't begin with the town's early history. Instead, they begin with something much darker: the strange occurrences that started to plague the village in the late 1930s. As the 1930s drew to a close, something strange began to happen in Scribus. It started with whispers. People would talk about feeling watched, like there were eyes on them when they walked through the town square, or when they ventured into the nearby woods. Others reported seeing figures at the edges of the village, shadowy figures that would disappear when approached. Some said it was just their imagination, while others claimed they were being followed by invisible forces. But then, things escalated. Visitors, people who had never been to the village before, started reporting odd visions and unsettling feelings. One local hunter, an older man named Yannick, would later recall seeing a figure standing in the middle of the village square during a thick fog. When he approached, the figure vanished into thin air. It was as if the town itself was hiding something, a secret buried deep within its soil. The strangest thing of all? These occurrences never seemed to happen at any set time, but they were happening often enough to cause unease. By 1939, the rumors were no longer just whispers, they were warnings. Now, let's talk about the night that changed everything. In the winter of 1939, a traveler named Marek passed through the region. He was a wanderer, moving from one town to the next, always on the move. One bitterly cold evening, he found himself on the road leading to Scribus. The storm was brutal, and the winds howled through the trees, forcing him to seek shelter. The lights of the village were faintly visible through the fog, so he decided to stop and ask for a place to stay. When he arrived, he knocked on several doors, but no one answered. Odd. There were no lights on, and the town seemed completely quiet. Feeling uneasy but desperate for shelter, Marek wandered the empty streets, calling out to anyone who might hear him. But the only sound he could hear was the whistling wind. As the hours passed, Marek began to notice something even more bizarre. As he walked deeper into the village, he noticed that the buildings, once sturdy homes, seemed to be crumbling. They were abandoned, yes, but they looked as though they hadn't been lived in for decades. The doors were wide open, the windows cracked. Yet, there was no sign of life. By morning, the storm had passed, and Marek made his way to the town square to try and figure out what was going on. But when he reached the center of the village, something impossible happened. There were no buildings, not a single house, no roads, no people. It was as if the entire village had evaporated overnight. Marek stood there in disbelief. He walked in circles, retracing his steps, searching for any sign that Scribus had ever been there. But all he found were thick woods and overgrown paths. It was as though the village had never existed in the first place. When Marek made his way back to the nearby town and told local authorities what had happened, no one believed him. They thought he was simply lost or imagining things. But when a team of officials was dispatched to investigate, they made a horrifying discovery. There was no sign of Scribus on any map. Not only that, but there were no records of the village's existence in any local archives. The village had seemingly been erased from history. However, local legends spoke of the village's mysterious disappearance. Some claimed that the villagers themselves had vanished, but not before warning others about something terrible that had taken place, something so dark that they had to leave. But no one knew exactly what that something was. Others speculated that Scribus had simply never existed in the first place, and that it was a product of collective imagination, an urban legend born from the fog and the isolation of the forest. And yet, there were those who had lived in or near Scribus, people who could still remember the village in vivid detail, who claimed they'd walked its streets, and who could describe the town's layout with accuracy. But when they were brought to the site of the alleged village, they were faced with the same chilling reality. There was nothing there. So what happened to Scribus? Theories abound, and none of them are comforting. A dimensional rift. One theory is that Scribus slipped into another dimension. Some paranormal investigators believe that the strange occurrences leading up to the town's disappearance could be signs of a rift in time or space. Perhaps the village crossed into a parallel universe, where it continues to exist, but in a place we cannot reach. A mass disappearance? Others believe that the village was cursed. According to one local myth, a group of ancient spirits once haunted the area. These spirits, angry at the humans who had settled there, caused the village to vanish as punishment. They say that the spirits of the villagers are trapped in an endless cycle, waiting for someone to break the curse. A government cover-up? There's also the possibility that Scribus was a secret military installation, or perhaps a site for a covert operation during the war. Some suggest that the government may have erased all evidence of the village to cover up whatever was really happening there. In recent years, people have begun reporting strange phenomena in the area where Scribus once stood. Visitors to the woods claim to hear voices on the wind, whispers calling their names. Others say they've seen flashes of light in the trees, and some even claim to have glimpsed shadowy figures moving in the distance. Could it be that Scribus is returning? Or is it forever trapped between the realms of reality and the unknown? So, what do you think happened to Scribus? Was it just a myth? Or could it really have vanished into thin air? Could there be something out there, hidden in the woods, waiting to be discovered? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling mysteries. Stay tuned for our next story, where we uncover the mystery of the Phantom City, a place that appears on maps but never in real life.